The day I brought my newborn home, my sister-in-law met me at the door with a trash bag. "You can't raise a baby in this house. You're broken." My husband took the bag and said, "She's moving in with her mother until she gets better." I slept at a friend's place, holding my baby in my arms. But when they called me begging weeks later, I let it ring until, when I pulled into the driveway, I didn't even recognize my own house. It had only been 3 days since I left for the hospital, but it felt like years. I was running on 2 hours of sleep, my body still in shock from the labor, and my mind numb. I kept telling myself that once I got through the front door, things would start to feel okay. I'd put my baby down in her crib, sit down with Mark, and we'd just be a family. But Denise was standing at the door with a black trash bag, like she was expecting a garbage truck, not her brother's wife and newborn daughter. She didn't say congratulations. She didn't ask how labor went. She didn't look at my baby. She just said, "You can't raise a baby in this house. You're broken." Just like that. And Mark, he didn't say a word to defend me. He stepped out behind her, grabbed the trash bag from her hands, and said like it was some chore, "She's moving in with her mother until she gets better." That's when I realized this wasn't spontaneous. They planned it. I told Mark a week before the delivery that I was feeling low, real low. I cried at night, couldn't sleep even when I was dead tired, and I was terrified that I wasn't going to be a good mother. I'd said I might talk to someone, maybe get help. That's all I said. I trusted him. I didn't expect him to use it as ammo. He didn't even ask me what I needed. He just decided with his sister, apparently, that I was unfit. That our daughter, who I'd carried for 9 months and just delivered after a brutal labor, was safer with them. I turned and walked back to the car with my baby still in her car seat, my body aching, bleeding, my mind spinning. I couldn't even process what was happening. I texted Shayna from the driveway. "Can I come stay with you? It's bad." She wrote back in seconds, "Yes. I'm home. Whatever you need." She was the only one who treated me like a person. That night, I sat on her couch in my hospital clothes, still wearing the socks they gave me in the maternity ward. I held my baby while she slept, and I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Shayna fed me, bathed my daughter when I couldn't move, and let me sleep while she stood guard over us like a pit bull. She told me I wasn't crazy. She told me I wasn't dangerous. She told me I was human. Mark didn't text for 10 days. When he finally did, it wasn't even, "How are you?" It was, "Denise and I boxed up your things. Let us know when to drop them." My things. Not our things. Not "come home." Not "I'm sorry." They left the boxes in the lobby of Shayna's building like I was a delivery they were done with. The nursery I spent months building gone. They even took the name decal off the wall that said, "Welcome home, Baby Joe." Joe never got to see her room. 2 weeks in, I stopped crying. Something in me hardened. I started looking up lawyers. I started keeping notes. Dates, texts, everything. Shayna helped me document it all. I talked to a therapist who said I was going through postpartum depression, yes, but I wasn't a danger. I just needed support. Support. Not exile. That's when Mark started leaving voicemails. Said he was confused. Said Denise meant well. He said I was overreacting. Said Joe needed her mother. Like I was just supposed to forget everything and go back to the house where they ambushed me and called me broken. I didn't pick up. He called every day. I stopped listening to the voicemails. Then Denise texted, "You're being selfish. This is affecting the baby. Get over yourself." That's when I knew I was never going back. But they still thought they had the upper hand. They thought I was weak. That I'd fold eventually. That I'd crawl back for their version of help. They didn't know I was building something. I wasn't just getting better. I was getting ready. The longer I stayed away, the more their masks started to slip. Mark and Denise didn't think I'd actually stay gone. They thought I'd come crawling back within a week, begging for forgiveness, maybe even thanking them for saving my child for me. But when week 3 came, and I still hadn't responded to any calls or texts, things changed. Fast. Mark started playing the guilt card hard. One morning I woke up to a string of texts from him. "You're punishing me for protecting Joe. You weren't well. We had to act. You're being influenced by Shayna. She's twisting things. Then, you either come home by Friday or I'm filing for emergency custody." That's when I realized they weren't scared I was unfit. They were scared I was free. I got a lawyer. Legal aid, not fancy, but smart and sharp. I showed her everything. The texts, the medical records, the photo of Denise standing in my doorway with that trash bag. She said I had a strong case, especially since I had primary physical custody and they'd kicked me out without legal cause. Then I found out they'd already been talking to their lawyer. Mark had filed paperwork. He was trying to get emergency full custody on the basis of emotional instability. He used my postpartum diagnosis like a weapon. Denise wrote a letter saying I had episodes and was unresponsive at times. Total lies. They were trying to erase me from my daughter's life before she even hit 1 month old. Meanwhile, Shayna caught wind of something worse. One of her coworkers had a cousin who knew Denise. Word was, Denise had been living in my house full-time since I left. Sleeping in my bed, using my bathroom, even dressing Joe in new clothes she bought herself, never the ones I had packed. She had moved into my life, like she'd been waiting for the chance. Shayna and I drove past the house one night, parked on the corner. I saw Joe's curtains open and Denise walking past the window holding my baby, like she was the mother. I broke down right there in the car. That image stayed with me for days. I tried calling Mark just once after that to ask if Joe was okay, if she was sleeping okay, eating enough. He answered but wouldn't give me anything real. Just more of that smug, robotic tone. "She's fine. She's safe. You just need to focus on getting better." I said, "I am better. I was never dangerous." He said, "You were unstable. That's enough." Then he hung up. 2 days later, I got served. Custody hearing. They were pushing to get me declared unsuitable. They wanted my daughter. And they were willing to lie, manipulate, and destroy me to get her. That's when I stopped waiting for justice. I started planning revenge. They thought I'd stay quiet. But they forgot. I'm still Joe's mother. And I was done playing by their rules. 3 days before the custody hearing, my lawyer got a hold of something that changed everything. It was a voicemail, left accidentally by Denise. She must have thought she hung up, but she didn't. And what got recorded on my voicemail was gold. In the message, Denise was talking to someone, probably one of her friends or a family member. You could hear her clearly saying, "She's not coming back. Mark just needs to push through the hearing, and we'll have Joe full-time. She wasn't meant to be a mother anyway. She cracked before labor." You should have seen the way she cried in the nursery. Pathetic. My lawyer's jaw dropped when she heard it. We had the transcript certified, added it to the court file, and flagged it as evidence of collusion and emotional manipulation. But it got worse. That same week, Shayna helped me recover an old iPad that was still logged into Mark's iCloud. I'd left it in the closet at our place, and she had a spare key from the time she used to dog sit for us. I hadn't even remembered it existed. And that iPad? It had Mark's iMessages synced. I found texts between him and Denise going back weeks before Joe was born. They were planning how to stage an intervention and get me out of the house. There were messages like, "We can't trust her with a newborn. If we push her hard enough, she'll leave on her own. Don't worry, family court won't side with someone unstable." One message from Denise said, "Once Joe is born, we move fast. You can't flinch. She's too emotional to fight back." They had plotted this before my daughter was even born. And it all started because I confided in Mark. Because I admitted I was scared. I thought I was doing the right thing, being honest. He took that fear and weaponized it. I gave the screenshots and voicemail to my lawyer. She didn't just smile. She went straight to filing a request for a countermotion. We were no longer just defending. We were going after full custody. No shared anything. We were going to expose what they did. But even then, I knew Mark and Denise wouldn't back down easily. These weren't people who felt guilt. They felt ownership. Of Joe. Of me. That's when I got a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Mark's mom, Lisa. She'd always been cold with me, polite in front of people, but never warm. I expected her to yell, to plead for Mark. Instead, she said, I didn't know how far they'd go. I didn't know they'd do that. Turns out, Denise had told Lisa that I had abandoned the baby and walked out because I couldn't handle it. Lisa never heard my side. She was shocked when she saw the court filings and the evidence we submitted. Then she said, I'm willing to testify. If you'll let me see my granddaughter, I'll tell the court the truth. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just hung up and added it to my growing file. They thought I was broken. But they didn't see the woman I became in that tiny apartment, rocking my baby in the dark, while my entire life was being rewritten behind my back. The hearing was coming, and I was ready. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in the only clean blouse I owned that didn't have a formula stain on it. Shayna stayed home with Joe. She kissed my forehead before I left and said, Go take your life back. The courtroom in Martinez wasn't big, but it felt like all of California was watching. Mark sat at the other table in a navy blazer that didn't hide the smug tilt of his jaw. Denise was behind him in a white dress suit, like she thought she was giving a press conference. When they called my name, I stood up straighter than I ever had. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I told the judge everything. I had the medical documentation about my postpartum symptoms. I had the voicemail where Denise submitted their plan. I had the texts pulled from the iPad, showing premeditated collusion to isolate me and take my baby. When the judge asked if I had a witness, my lawyer nodded. Lisa, Mark's own mother, stood up. She testified under oath that Denise had manipulated the story, that I had been a loving and devoted mother, and that she'd been misled from day one. Mark didn't even look at her. Denise tried to speak, but the judge shut her down. You're not the parent, she said. You're not even a party to this hearing. Sit down. It took less than 20 minutes after that. The judge ruled that not only would I retain full physical and legal custody, but that Mark would receive supervised visitation only, pending a full psychological review and parenting assessment. And Denise? She was barred from any contact with Joe. Not just restricted, barred. The judge's words hit like lightning. This court does not tolerate manipulation of mental health concerns to gain custody. That is emotional abuse, plain and simple. I walked out with my file in one hand and my dignity in the other. Mark tried to approach me in the hallway after. He looked pale, small. He said, We can still fix this. For you. I looked him in the eye and said, You gave her up the day you gave them that trash bag. Then I walked away. A week later, I changed the locks on the house and started proceedings to remove his name from the mortgage. He had abandoned the home voluntarily. That gave me leverage. The court agreed. Denise? She was reported to her hospital's ethics board for abuse of position. Shayna sent the voicemail and texts anonymously. Last I heard, she was suspended while under review. Mark still gets his supervised visits, twice a month in a neutral facility. I drop Joe off, and I don't speak to him. She's too little to understand now. But someday, I'll tell her the truth. Not to poison her against him, but to show her that strength doesn't always come in loud moments. Sometimes it comes from standing alone, bleeding, scared, and still choosing to protect what's yours. They tried to label me broken. All they did was show me I was stronger than both of them combined. And I never let the phone ring again.